The Amazon rainforest is one of the most biodiverse and important ecosystems on our planet. The rainforest is a vast and diverse ecosystem that covers over 6 million square kilometers across several South American countries, including Brazil, Peru, and Colombia. The Amazon rainforest is home to thousands of species of plants, animals, and indigenous people who rely on its resources for survival. It's often referred to as the lungs of the planet, producing 20% of the world's oxygen and absorbing vast amounts of carbon dioxide. Have you ever wondered and stopped to think about how the oxygen you breathe and the food you eat are connected to the green plants around you? So with that, everybody, I welcome you to Byju's 9th and 10th grade channel, and as a part of our ongoing Shikhar series, I welcome you to today's class where we will be covering photosynthesis, but we are going to learn it the Byju's way. So of course, we knew about photosynthesis, we've been learning about it, but today we will learn it like never before. I'm your biology teacher Aishwarya, and I welcome you to this amazing class. Now, of course, before I get started with today's class, I request all of my students who are watching it currently live, and for those students who are going to be watching it much later during the stream and you are watching it premiered, I request you all to make sure that you have your notebooks and pens ready with you, have maybe a pencil and your textbook open so that we can have a holistic, proper understanding. So that by the end of today's class, you will never want to go back and revisit photosynthesis. It would have been embedded in your mind and you would have learned the concept in the best way possible. So everybody, before I get started, for all my live stream students, I hope that my audio, my video, and my screen and what I'm writing on the screen is visible to all of you. If it is, everybody, give me a quick thumbs up in the chat very quickly. Yes? So I can see that we are good to go. So we are not going to waste a lot of time. We are going to jump into it and get started. All I need you to do is to have a lot of josh, have a lot of enthusiasm when you are learning with us, especially when you are learning the Byju's way. Now I'm sure that a lot of you must be wondering, what is this Byju's way and what am I talking about? So let's understand what all we are going to be covering today. So in our class, we're going to get started with a very simple understanding of why plants are important to us. And then we're going to move on into understanding more about photosynthesis. But we will not simply understand it, the theoretical way where we just tell you what the process is. But rather, we will visualize this process, because the best way of understanding and achieving conceptual clarity is by making sure that you visualize it in your mind. And biology is best understood with visuals. And where else to go when you want to think about creative visualization other than Byju's? Then, of course, we're going to move into a very important concept, which is steps of photosynthesis. And then we are going to move on to important activities that are related to photosynthesis. And along with this, we will wrap up our understanding about the whole topic end to end about photosynthesis. There will be nothing that we will leave behind for another class. Now, a few things I would like for you to keep in mind in this particular video is that your time is very precious to us, which is why we will make sure that we will wind this class up in max to max 1 hour. We'll try to keep 45 minutes to 1 hour as our time, but this will only happen if my students' cooperation is there with me, which is why when I am teaching you a certain concept, right, I will be solely focusing on teaching it. And I request you to make sure that you are just listening to me, right? Don't unnecessarily spam the chat or distract your friends in the live chat, but I need you to listen to me. And for those of you who are watching it premiere, I'm sure, or much later after the live stream, this will come very handy for all of you. Now, of course, if you have doubts, right, I request you to write it in your sheet of paper that I've asked you to gather and come, so that when I have doubt boards that are there, you can ask all your doubts and get it clarified. So if you're watching it later, you can just fast forward that part and it becomes easy. Now, the next thing is I will be discussing questions. This is not just about, learning about photosynthesis and forgetting about it. But I am going to be asking you questions which have come in boards 2023, right? This particular board exam that took place a few months ago, I am going to be asking you questions from this particular topic as well. So this will come handy. I have a homework question towards the end, and I will be providing you worksheets as well on the Telegram channel. Link is available in the description below, and the sheet will be shared to you by today night or maximum tomorrow, so that you can have more practice with respect to this particular concept. So are we ready to learn more and more about photosynthesis? For questions coming in about Menti quizzes, I request you all to kindly not spam. We will not be happening, or we will not be doing Menti quiz today. It is only conceptual understanding, right? So we are ready. Let's get started, not wasting any more time, right? So we're going to get started with a very, very simple question. That's for which most of you know the answer, right? We started this particular class today with understanding the importance of Amazon rainforest. But as a matter of fact, we don't need to restrict ourselves to Amazon rainforest. But let's think about forests in general, plants in general, right? Why are plants so important to us, right? They play a very, very key role when it comes to the whole environment or the whole ecosystem. There are many reasons which you can constantly keep letting me know in the live chat, and I'm seeing a lot of answers coming my way. Now, first and foremost, we know that a lot of organisms rely on plants for their food, right? Understand how I've stressed on the word rely. That means that they are dependent on these plants for food or for nutrition. And not just nutrition, but apart from that, various other products as well we get from plants. Now, along with that, we know that the forests that are there are almost like, the lungs of the earth, because they supply oxygen, which means that we obtain oxygen as well from these plants. And we know how important oxygen is, because if we need to respire, if we need to get energy or produce energy, oxygen is a key player, right? That being just one among many reasons why oxygen is important. And along with that, we see that they regulate the climate as well, or they play a very, very important role in maintaining the climatic conditions of a certain area. So this being few among the many functions that plants are involved in. So let's get started with a very simple understanding, right? We're going to learn more about plants, and we're going to learn about this photosynthesis. Yes? So very quickly, when we talk about plants, we need to know the basic structure of the plants, and you can give me the answer in the live chat as well. What are the different parts of the plant, right? This is a simple concept that we have all learned in our lower grades. So parts of a plant, yes? So what are the different parts of the plant? We know that at the bottom, of course, under the soil, we have roots, right? Then, of course, we have stem. We have leaves, we have flowers, we have fruits, right? Then, of course, inside the fruits, you have seeds. Very good. You're all giving me the answer. Now, I have a quick question for you, and it is going to be a poll question, so it will be available in the live chat. And your question is, which part of the plant is commonly referred to as the food factory, right? So, which part of the plant is commonly referred to as the food factory? Now you've told me all the different parts, but what is commonly referred to as a food factory? This is a very simple question, right? Very easy question for which most of you here know the answers. The poll is available for all of you. You can go ahead. Now, of course, this is specific to the live stream students. So for those of you who might be watching it later, you can just, give me the answer, right? It's very simple and easy. Of course, right? It is nothing but the leaf. Yes? So let's look a little bit closer into the leaf, right? Now, if leaves are called as a food factory, that means that leaves produce their own food, right? And we know that there are certain organisms which produce their own food, and they are called a certain something. So very quickly, everybody, you have another question coming your way. Organisms that produce their own food, right? They are called as what? Now you have two options coming your way. Yes, very simple, easy question. Are they called as autotrophs, or are they called as heterotrophs? What are organisms? Understand, organisms that produce their own food using simple inorganic substances, right? Very good, all of you, very good. You're very quick to answer to me on the live chat. They are nothing but, or we call them as autotrophs, right? And we see that this mode of nutrition is what we call as autotrophic mode of nutrition. Yes? So this is what we understand as autotrophic mode of nutrition. And especially we see that green plants that are there, right? So we see that green plants have the ability to prepare their own food, and they do it by the process of photosynthesis, right? So now, of course, today's class is going to be dedicated to this beautiful process called as photosynthesis. But if I have to dedicate this, we need to deep dive into the biology of it, right? When we were in our lower grades, we've learned about overall what this whole process represents. But now that we are in class 10, we need to deep dive into the details of it. Yes? So let's see how is it that these green leaves especially, and I'm constantly specifying, and I'm getting questions saying, ma'am, why is it green plants? Why are you specifying? I will be explaining that, so don't worry, right? So now, of course, we know that green leaves that are there are the food factories, which means we've established that photosynthesis takes place in the green leaves. So let's have a look at the structure of the leaf, right? So now if you take any leaf, now I'm telling you, you can just step outside your house, take a leaf and look at it from outside. You don't even need to have any, microscope or anything like that. Just take any leaf and there are important parts that you see. On the outside, of course, if I were to have a look, we see that you have the surface of the leaf, which what we call as the lamina or the leaf plate. And of course, if you take maybe a hibiscus leaf or something like that, you would see that there would be a prominent part in the center, right? So we see that there's a prominent line-like structure which is there in the center, which is what we call as midrib. And from there, we see that there are various branches that come out of it, which we call as veins. Now the thing is, the midrib that is here consists of vascular bundles. So a quick question for all my live students who are watching right now. What are the vascular bundles made of? Now this is again a concept you have learned in 9th standard about the vascular bundles or the tissues that are found in plants. So a quick refresher on this, right? Vascular bundles are made of what? Can you tell me? Yes. Can we have the live chat back as well? I think it's gone off. So just give me a moment. I know all of you there are giving me the answer. And I know that most of you here know the answer to this. This is nothing but both xylem and phloem, right? It's not only xylem or only phloem, but we know that it is both xylem and phloem. And we know that these guys that are there have a very important part, right? They have a very important function to do, especially when it comes to transport. Yes? Very good. Now, this is what we've learned. But now let's look closer. Now imagine I take my leaf, right? So this is my leaf. I'm going to take a blade. Imagine my pen is the blade and I cut it in half in the manner that I'm showing you, right? I cut it in this manner. Then what I'm going to see would be something like this. So this is what we call as the cross section of the leaf, right? So when I say cross section, I'm taking it and this is how it would look on the inside, right? Now, if you think about it, right? We see that there are so many different kinds of cells. Are you observing only one kind of cell? Absolutely not. We see that there are different kinds of cells. Yes? So in this case, we see that on the outermost side, we have cuticle, which is a waxy coating that is there. Then we see that there is a layer of cells, right? So if I'm looking at it from the top, now imagine this is my leaf, right? I'm looking at it from the top. We see that we have the epidermis and it is a single layer of cells, right? It is a single layer of cells and we see that mainly it is protective in nature, right? So we see that this right here is protective in nature. Now below that, of course, we see that there is epidermis which is present on top and it is present in the bottom as well. So when it is present in the bottom, we call it as the lower epidermis. Very simple and easy. Yes? Now moving on, if you see in the center, this whole portion that is there, we see that they are mainly made up of mesophyll cells, right? So understand this, they are called as mesophyll cells, everybody. Yes, and we have two kinds. We have palisade mesophyll cells, which are the long ones, and you have these round spongy ones which are called as spongy mesophyll cells, right? Very good. Palisade means elongated cells that are there. Now these guys are very important to us. Why? Because these guys or these cells that are there are what actually perform photosynthesis, right? So they are the guys or they are the folks who perform photosynthesis. And if you notice at the lower bottom, right? So I would like you to focus at this portion at the bottom, and I need all of your attention here. At the bottom, we see that there are structures known as stomata. Right? Now, mainly we see that there are more number of stomata that we normally find in the lower epidermis, while lesser number of it which is there on top, right? Comparatively, but again differs from plant to plant, and we'll deep dive into it more. Yes? So with this, of course, we know that the region or mainly where we find photosynthesis, I'm stressing on this, mainly, right? Mainly where we observe it is in this region where the mesophyll cells that are there. And they are the ones which perform photosynthesis. So, what is this photosynthesis? So let me start off by just splitting the word, right? So photo, what does photo mean? Photo does not mean the photograph that you take, okay? But at the end of it, photo is nothing but light, right? Photo is light, and the synthesis that is there is to combine. That means that food is prepared by combining raw materials in the presence of light. Or if I were to give you a definition where all the important keywords are highlighted, you can take a screenshot or it's going to be available to you. It is nothing but the process by which green plants prepare their own food by combining carbon dioxide and water, right? In the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll to produce glucose and oxygen as a byproduct, right? So this definition here I have given you is a crux of the whole process. If you think about it, with this one definition, you've understood the whole process of photosynthesis, right? Very simple and easy. So far, are you all with me, right? Are you all with me? In the next 10 minutes, we have discussed our basics, right? We have discussed our basics. Now I'm going to do a doubt board section, okay? Where I want you all to ask your doubts. Ritika is asking me, ma'am, other examples of autotrophs, right? So your other examples of autotrophs will include certain bacteria like cyanobacteria. Now, cyanobacteria here has the ability to do photosynthesis, right? But then, of course, you have certain bacteria, like I'm not really picking out examples, but we see that they prepare their own food, but they don't use photosynthesis as a mechanism. They don't use light, right? But rather they use certain chemicals and they combine it. Yes? Okay, ma'am, what are the two types of mesophyll cells? Mesophyll cells are of two types, wherein we have spongy mesophyll cells, right? And of course, you have palisade mesophyll cells. Yes, are you all with me? What is ATP, right? ATP that is there is basically adenosine triphosphate. Why are mesophyll cells important? They are the cells that make up the structure of the leaf, and this is mainly where photosynthesis takes place. Krishna, drop it in the comments. I will take it up, but kindly stop spamming and pay attention in class. Krisha, on how is it present in them, I will take those questions later, right? So far, whatever I have discussed, can you tell me, right? Ma'am, mesophyll is not there. See, mesophyll cells per se, they are not explained in the textbook, but diagram wise, they will ask you which part it is, which is why I just gave you some extra information, right? Okay, ma'am, is stomata present in lower epidermis? Yes, AB, it is present, okay? Gauri, dark and light reaction that is there has already per se, if you look at just at NCRT. Today, I'm not touch basing on that, right? But I'll give you a brief understanding of it because it's a little out of the syllabus, but understand, or it's important that you know the explanation, right? Ma'am, is stomata present? Very few are present on the upper surface, right? Very few are present on the upper surface. Mohammadin, I am going to be taking those questions. Questions related to whatever I have not taught so far, stay on hold. I am going to be teaching it to you. And then if you still have doubts, you can take it up. Yes? Okay. Yes. Are we ready to proceed? Are we all ready to proceed? Because now we have had a basic, right? We've understood or you had a basic idea about photosynthesis. But now the next thing that I'm going to tell you is how exactly is photosynthesis happening and what are the steps of photosynthesis. So this right here is very, very important. Now the thing is, when I'm going to explain this part, again, like I said, I want you to just pay attention to what I teach, because if you pay attention to what I teach, you will be able to understand most of it then and there, okay? But if you constantly keep typing in between, you might get distracted. So I need attention, okay? Kindly don't spam. I will take your doubts, right? So let's get started, everybody. Now the thing is, when you talk about photosynthesis, everybody will tell you the chemical reaction, everybody will tell you these are the raw materials, everyone is going to show you the definition that I just showed you, right? From here in itself, I can teach you the whole process. I just need one slide to teach you. But the thing is, at Byju's, we don't believe that, right? Because in Byju's, we believe that it's very important that you visualize it. It should not be rote learning. It should be about memorizing. It should be about memorizing it in not the cliche manner, but with visuals, right? Creative energy. And if you are somebody who's checked out the Byju's app, you would know what kind of visuals we're talking about. But in case if you've not checked it out, I would highly recommend that you go and you check it out, because trust me, especially with things like biology, best way to learn is in this manner. So I'm just going to quickly show you how we here teach and learn at Byju's. So everyone, I hope all of you are ready. I want you to quickly go ahead and in the live chat telling me how excited you are, right? So let's get started, everyone. Give me one moment, right, as I set up my screen. Okay, yes, fully ready. All right, super duper excited. Okay, I can see that the live chat is excited. I hope that when you are watching this much later, you are excited as well. So let's get started, right? So let's go and understand how we do it here. So now, as you can all see, right, you can see that this right here represents a leaf, right? It's a simple structure of the leaf that is there. Now, we've already had a look at a cross section, and many students were asking me, ma'am, what is the cross section? Cross section is basically when you cut it into half, right? So now what I'm going to do is, before I teach you, right, I will go into the details and steps, of course. Now what I want you to do is take 1 minute, right? 1 minute or less than 1 minute of time. Don't type anything on the live chat, and for those of you who are watching, fast forward a little bit, but just watch, okay? Don't do anything, just watch the screen. It's going to go into full screen mode. I'll play a video and I want you to tell me how much you have understood by just watching that video. I will not say anything, okay? So can we please move into a full screen mode, and I'm going to start playing the video. We are ready and let's go. Okay then, how was that? I want all of you to take a minute, right? The power of visualization, right? It is the power of visualization, wherein now after this, right, I don't even think, now when I'm going to teach you all of this, right, after I teach you all of these things, trust me, you will never forget, right? You will never ever forget photosynthesis. And now when I couple it with the steps of photosynthesis as well, I told you, right, my promise to you was after this video or after this class, you're never going to forget. And that is something that I will truly believe in, right? It's still in your mind. Exactly. Now, some of you are like, ma'am, I didn't understand much. It's okay. That's why I'm here for you, right? So I'm going to quickly go again and I will replay this video and I'm going to teach you step by step, right? So I'm going to keep this particular screen because it's going to be a little easier for me to write on it, right? So now, of course, I told you that photosynthesis is a process in which green plants prepare their own food by combining carbon dioxide and water. So what does this mean? It means that your carbon dioxide and your water are the raw materials, right? So these are the raw materials that are there. Now the next question is, how exactly or where does it come from? Yes? Now, everybody in the live chat and for those of you watching it later, you can think about it. Where is water coming from? You can give me the answer very quickly as I ask you. Now, we know that water that is there is absorbed by the roots. So, we know that the roots that are there, so I'm just going to quickly draw a root system for me, right? So, we know that the roots that are there, water is present in the soil. Now we know that water gets absorbed by the roots and it is transported all the way till the leaves, right? So we see that they are transported all the way till the leaves. Now what helps in transporting water from the roots to the upper parts? It is nothing but xylem. So earlier when I told you that the midrib has xylem as well as phloem, it's for this particular reason, because water from the roots need to be transported to the upper parts, right? Now of course we know that that is where this is coming from. Next up you have carbon dioxide. Now for those of you who are here, right? For those of you who are here, where is carbon dioxide found? So now we know that carbon dioxide that is there is found in the air. Very good, Abhineet, very good. So it is found in our surroundings or it is found in the air. Now it needs to come from the surroundings or from the outside. It needs to enter inside, right? It needs to enter inside the leaves. That is where we have this particular structure called as stomata coming into the picture, right? So I'm just going to quickly go ahead and I'm going to show you how a stomata looks like. Now this right here is the structure of the stomata. Let's take 1 minute of time to appreciate how beautiful this looks, right? Very, very beautiful. Yes? Now the thing is, carbon dioxide, like I told you, is present in the outside. So all these are my carbon dioxide molecules, right? Now it needs to go inside. So we see that stomata that is here have these kidney-shaped structures, okay? These kidney-shaped or bean-shaped structures that are there is called as guard cells, right? So we see that they regulate the opening and closing of stomata. Very good. They are called as the guard cells that are there. Yes? Now the thing is, when the stomata is open, we see that carbon dioxide will enter. So now going back to the video that we saw. Now we know where our raw materials are coming from, right? We know that raw materials that are there are collected and they come, right? It's almost like if you have to cook, right? Buying your vegetables and everything is not considered to be a step. That is something that you need to have in order to carry out your recipe. Yes? So photosynthesis ka steps is like your recipe for photosynthesis. But your transport of your raw materials is not really considered because that's something that is needed, right? So in this case, going back, so let me quickly go back to the video, right? So I'm going to keep pausing and explaining. So now of course as we go, we know that water that is there is absorbed by the roots and it is transported to the upper parts through these tubes or what we call as xylem, and then it is transported to all of your mesophyll cells, right? Now at the same time we know that carbon dioxide that is there is present in the surroundings, yes? So we see that it enters or we see that it's present in our surroundings and it enters into, right? We see that it enters into the leaves with the help of stomata. Now, how does the carbon dioxide enter? Yes, it enters through diffusion itself, where it moves from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Now it has reached your mesophyll cells, right? Now these mesophyll cells that are there, they are green in color, right? So we see that they are green in color. Now the thing is, they are green in color because these cells have a certain cell organelle in them which we call as chloroplast, right? So as we zoom into it, we observe that they have these structures called as chloroplast. Now a very quick question for you. Chloroplast is found only in plant cells, right? Chloroplast is found only in plant cells. True or false? Right, we're talking about a certain cell organelle called as chloroplast. Found only in plant cells, true or false? It's a quick revision of cell structure function from grade 9. Very good, all of you, very good, right? Of course, this particular statement is true because we know that they are exclusively found. Now, why is chloroplast so special? There is something in chloroplast, no? Something is there in chloroplast, certain pigment that is there. So what is the pigment which is found in chloroplast that makes it so special, right? Yes, Very good, exactly. So the pigment that we find in chloroplast is nothing but chlorophyll. So in chloroplast, we find chlorophyll, right? Now chlorophyll, of course, a lot of you here are telling me, ma'am, chloroplast is there in blue-green algae. Yes, of course, but here it's specific to plant and animal cells that I made the comparison. So that is why I just asked you specific to plant cells, right? But we find it in certain other organisms also, not denying that fact, right? Now this chlorophyll is very important. Because the thing is, once your raw materials are here, I told you carbon dioxide and water will combine in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, right? So what does this mean? It means that chlorophyll that is there will absorb the sunlight, right? Now that is a very special property of chlorophyll, okay? Now in this case, that brings us to the first step of photosynthesis, that is absorption, right? So absorption of sunlight, or I can say light energy by chlorophyll. Now understand that, don't say chloroplast, but the more specific way of you writing this would be chlorophyll, right? So they will absorb the light energy, or they will trap the light energy. That is one way of saying it, right? So now in this case, when I go back, you can see that light energy is falling on it and it is getting trapped by the chlorophyll that is there. Now the thing is, it brings us to the question. Why are we doing this light energy process? Why can't carbon dioxide and water just combine amongst themselves and give us, glucose, that is the end product? Why are we going through this whole process? That's because it brings me to step number 2. The thing is, water that is there, right? Water is a very stable molecule, I would say, if I have to put it in very layman terms, right? It's a very stable molecule. So the thing is, for me to get glucose and for me to get oxygen, I need high amount of energy to break water, right? So here we see that my step number 2 is I will use this light energy, okay? And I am going to split my water molecules. So now that my water molecules has reached my mesophyll cells, it has reached chloroplast. Next, what will happen is splitting of water takes place, right? So which means that if I have 2 molecules of water, it will give me hydrogen ions, right? It will give me oxygen and it will give me 4 electrons. Now this I'm just giving you a very chemical and technical reaction because I want to be accurate with all of you. But this is what happens, right? Splitting of water takes place. Now an extra terminology. Splitting of water is taking place how? In the presence of sunlight or light, which is why we call this as photolysis, right? Or photolysis. Photo means light, lysis means to split. So what is photolysis? Photolysis is the splitting of water molecules in order to give us hydrogen ions and oxygen, right? And it's taking place in the presence of sunlight. Now for everybody who are asking me, ma'am, why chloroplast is important? Chloroplast is important because it is the only plastid it is the plastid which has chlorophyll in it. Why is chlorophyll important? Chlorophyll is again necessary because it is responsible for absorbing sunlight. Why is sunlight necessary? Light energy has huge amount of energy that has the ability to actually break down water molecules, right? So now you know that conditions are sunlight and water. Now does this mean that if sunlight is not there, will photosynthesis take place? It cannot, right? Sunlight is essential because of the splitting of water. Why splitting of water? Because again, you need the hydrogen, your glucose, right? It's for your step number 3, you need this hydrogen, you need the oxygen, right? So this is what we mean by this, right? So photosynthesis is not going to take place. Now basically what has happened here through this whole process, there is conversion, right? So here we see that there is conversion of light energy. Yes, your light energy has now gotten utilized or it has become into chemical energy. No, now it has gone into ions, all of that has gotten used up. So now you have some hydrogen. Yes. Now this hydrogen, it will then go not in one single step but series of steps, and at the end of it we see that last step takes place where reduction, right? So reduction of carbon dioxide into your carbohydrate. Yes. Now all of you have learned about redox reactions, right, or reduction reaction, which is simply can be defined in multiple ways, but we can also say it is addition of your hydrogen ions or hydrogen to it as well. So in this case, if you think about it, ultimately you are getting carbohydrate in the form of glucose, right? So we're getting it in the form of glucose. So now for those of you who don't know what reduction reaction is, reduction reactions are basically when hydrogen ions get added to it. That is one way of defining it, but don't worry. Kriti ma'am will be taking it in greater detail. You can check her classes out. So finishing this off, you know that your glucose molecule is formed. Now what will happen to glucose? Your glucose molecule is your food molecule, right? So which means food needs to be transported to different parts of the plant. So as you can see here, the glucose that is there will then be transported by the phloem, which is another type of transporting tissue which is there, which will take it to both the upper and the lower parts. And whatever oxygen that is there ultimately will be diffused out, right? It will go out through the stomata. And this right here is very, very important, which is the balanced equation for photosynthesis. All of you, right? So balanced equation for photosynthesis. Everybody quickly write this, right? So everyone quickly write this down, and this can come sometimes, right? So they may ask you to write a balanced reaction. Yes, reduction is addition of hydrogen and removal of oxygen. Both ways it can be described. Yes? So with this, everybody, we're finished. We learned steps of photosynthesis, we learned hydrogen, we learned about the whole process as well. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your confidence level? For all my live students, right? Students watching this live, what is the confidence level? I want you to tell me, right? If it is 10 out of 10, I've done my job, right? We as Byju's have done our job. That with visuals, you have learned everything, right? Yes. Okay, I can see 99% of the students here are ranging their confidence between 9 to 10,000. So that in itself is a very, very big achievement, right? So now very quickly, everybody, give me one moment. And of course, like I said, it's not like this is the only way. We'll quickly do a summary also so that all of you are now even more confident, right? And if you enjoyed this way of learning, this is what we call as experiential learning, right? So if you have learned it in the way that has never been before, like an experience it was, let me know in the comments of this video as well. Now many students are like, "Arey ma'am, we didn't understand." Don't worry, I will explain and recall this once again, right? Once again, I'm going to recall it, and I'm going to take the doubts. Krishna, many others asking me doubts. When I reach the doubt board, bacha, I will definitely take it, right? Definitely, I will take all your doubts and clarify this once again. So we know that photosynthesis is the process by which green plants, right, prepare their own food by using carbon dioxide and water. Now, carbon dioxide that is there is present in the air, and it is taken in through the stomata that is there, right? So we know that there is stomata which is present on the surface of the leaves, tiny pores through which carbon dioxide will diffuse inside. Yes? Now we know that water is another raw material which is absorbed by the roots, and it is taken to the upper parts through the xylem. Right? So we know that xylem transports the water, and finally it reaches the leaves, right? So at the leaves is the site of the region where photosynthesis takes place. And we know that leaves have this specialized kind of cell organelle or plastid, which we call as chloroplast, which consists of chlorophyll in it, right? Now this chlorophyll that is there plays a very important role because this has the ability to absorb sunlight. Yes? So sunlight is absorbed, and this sunlight that is there, or this light energy that is there, is then utilized to split water molecules, right? Yes. So now everybody who's confused here, right, about what is happening. Splitting of water molecules. Now imagine you have water, right? Water, very stable molecule, right? So if you have to draw the structure, we know that somewhat it would be like this, right? Very stable in its own way. Which means that if I have to break these chemical bonds, I require lots of energy, right? Where else will I be able to get it? From the sunlight. So the water that is there will split into half, right? That means it will give me the respective ions. Yes, it will give me my respective ions, right? So here we know that water will split into hydrogen ions. It will give me oxygen ions as well, but it will combine and form oxygen, and it will give me some electrons as well, but you don't need to pay attention to the electrons that are there. You will learn in the higher grades, right? So at this point, right, very quickly, splitting of water molecules. Quick question for you. Now we know that the light energy that is there after absorption of light energy, splitting of water takes place to give us the respective ions. What is this process called as? Question for all of you. Yes? What is this process called as? You have a poll question on the YouTube live chat coming right away. I will be taking it, right? What is it called as? Yes? Question has come up and give me the answer very quickly. Splitting of water molecules. Many of you getting worried about, ma'am, what are water molecules or what is the splitting? See, think about it in a very technical way, right? So imagine this pen that I have here with me, right? Or I think I'll take a sheet of paper. Yes? Now this right here, you imagine, this is your hydrogen. Okay, let me do one thing. I'll be innovative in the meanwhile as you all answer, right? So this right here is your two hydrogens, right? And then imagine that this is your oxygen. Now they're all together, very happy, forming water. But when light energy comes, they will split individually, right? Everything will become individual. So this is what we call as photolysis, very simple and easy, yes? And splitting is what we call as photolysis. And of course, after this, light energy, conversion of light energy happens into chemical energy. Then you know that reduction of carbon dioxide takes place, giving you carbohydrates, which is nothing but glucose. And oxygen is given out as a byproduct, which is then diffused out of the stomata. So this right here is the basic equation. I'm just going to move all the annotations that I've written. And some of you are asking me what would happen, right? What is going to happen if I don't balance it? Sometimes they may cut 1 or 2 marks, in half mark in the exam. So better to have it balanced. So for those of you very quickly, so if you can move me to the other side, you will see that these are the 3 steps. Step number 1, step number 2, step number 3. Those of you asking me, ma'am, what is the reduction that takes place? Basically carbohydrates. So CO2 that is there does not have any hydrogen in it. So when you say it is getting reduced, it means that hydrogen is getting added because carbohydrate has CHO, right? So that is as simple as that, right? So now of course here we see that apart from your chlorophyll, another structure which is playing a very important role is the stomata. So if you see in this particular case, this is how the structure of the stomata looks like. And the things you need to pay attention to are the guard cells and the opening which is called as the stomata. Now when the stomata is open, right, only when this opening is there, you have your carbon dioxide and your, oxygen entering and leaving, right? So your stomata will be open when water molecules, right? So this needs to become turgid. Now again going back to a concept of osmosis, turgidity that we learnt in 9th standard. Cell ka 9th standard mein we learnt about this, right? So now of course we know that here when water enters, we see that cells become turgid or they become proper, right? We see that they have a definite structure. So that is when we say that the stomata is open. Now here we see that movement of gases, whether it's your carbon dioxide or your water, takes place through diffusion, right? Where movement takes place from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, right? And we see that it's not like first oxygen will be like, hey, it's not like carbon dioxide like, wait, I'll come first, then oxygen, you go, right? It's not like that. It's kind of like what happens, right? It's simultaneous, yes? So we see that it is simultaneously taking place, which is why we call it as gaseous exchange, right? Gaseous exchange because it is not step by step, okay? It's happening all together simultaneously, right? Which is why in this case, we see that gaseous exchange takes place. And when the stomata has to close, right, we see that there are certain periods of time when the stomata will remain closed. Now, when the stomata has to remain closed, we see that water will move out of it, right? Water moves out. And when water moves out, cell has lost all shape. It has become flaccid. That means which was bean shaped earlier has now become flaccid. So the cells will shrink and gaseous exchange will not take place if the stomata is closed. Yes? So now, of course, in this case, when you think about it, right? we've covered the major chunk for today, right? Major chunk of the chapter on photosynthesis has been covered. So far, whatever doubts you have, I am going to take it. Now, I understand lot of you, right, ma'am? Does the water move out of the stomata through osmosis? Yes, it does. Ma'am, in night, there are some plants who do not do photosynthesis without sunlight. So how can photosynthesis happen without it? Krishna, I'm going to explain that point. But the thing is, there are certain plants, right? Because you see stomata that is there, don't just carry out the function of gaseous exchange, right? We see that they carry out another very important function which we will discuss later on, that is transpiration, right? We will be learning more about it when we cover transportation. But transpiration is nothing but the loss of excess water in the form of water vapor, right, through the aerial paths. Now the thing is, in certain desert plants, right, I will be coming to that point in a bit, but in the case of desert plants, what happens is that in the mornings, what happens is that they cannot really open their stomata for gaseous exchange, right? So in the morning time, what happens is that their stomata is closed, okay? Stomata is closed. But what they do is night pay, they will keep it open, right? So at night, they will keep their stomata open. Carbon dioxide will enter and it will be temporarily stored, okay? So you see that it's going to be temporarily stored in a brief manner, right? Or we say that it will undergo certain processes and it will remain. And in the morning is when you have your process taking place or photosynthesis that is taking place, right? So that is what we mean by this. Okay. Ma'am, what do we mean by turgid? So turgid is a condition, right? Where we see that, I'm just removing all of this. Turgid is a condition, or turgidity is a phenomena or a condition where we see that water has entered, right? And we see that the cells have a proper rigid shape, right? That is what we mean by this. Ma'am, if photolysis is taking place, how is it? See, like I said, it requires to produce the oxygen, right? But what I am telling you is a very brief manner in which the process is taking place. There are many more steps involved, right? So that is what I mean by it. Equation of photosynthesis, very simple. 6CO2, right? So 6CO2 plus 6H2O in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, giving me C6H12O6, and it will give me 6 oxygen molecules, right? Okay, AV on respiration. We will cover that topic once Ankita ma'am and I finish the whole concept of respiration, right? What is the last step of photosynthesis? I'm going to take this part one more time. It is nothing but reduction. That means your carbon dioxide is just getting converted to glucose, okay? Yes, all right. I'll do the desert plants part once again, but I'm going to quickly move on. Any more doubts, let me know in the comments of this video. So now, of course, we know that the glucose that is there, right? Glucose is produced as a result of photosynthesis. But what happens to glucose? It's not that all the glucose that is produced is always used by the plant, right? So in this case, we see that some amount of glucose does gets transported by the phloem for immediate usage. But the thing is, there could be excess glucose, right? So excess glucose that is there gets stored in the form of starch, right? So always remember this. Excess glucose that is there gets stored in the form of starch, and it could be stored in different parts of the plant, right? And whenever it wants to use this starch, it will convert it to sucrose and it will then utilize for whatever activities that it wants, right? So this is what we understand. But a very important question for all of you. Is only glucose enough? Plant has made its own food, right? Plant has made glucose using photosynthesis. But is glucose alone enough for the plant? Plant is like, Arey, I am happy. I have only glucose. I have made my own food. I don't need to worry about anything. Is that is the case? Yes or no? You have a live poll question which is available to all of you, right? It is available on the YouTube poll. Yes or no? What do you think it is? Exactly. Is glucose alone enough? Absolutely not, right? Now the thing is, if that is not enough, I need you to tell me why is it that this alone is not enough? Because the thing is, glucose is one nutrient, but there are various other nutrients that we require, right? What are the various other nutrients? We require nutrients such as nitrogen, we require phosphorus, right? We require various inorganic components that are there, yes? So we have potassium, exactly, NPK, right? So as you all know, this is necessary. So where do they get the other nutrients from? They get it from the soil so that they can carry out various other activities that are there. So now, of course, quickly to recall, right, on desert plants, which many of you had a doubt. Many of you had a doubt about desert plants. Now, desert plants, of course, take up carbon dioxide at night, right? They prepare an intermediate. I'll probably use white color so that you can see. Yes? So, like I said, a lot of you are asking me, carbon dioxide is taken up at night when the stomata is open, right? And then they make an intermediate product. Yes? So they make an intermediate product, and then eventually in the morning, the process of photosynthesis takes place. So that's how it happens in desert plants that are there. So far, what is the confidence level out of 10? Where is your confidence at? That is what I want to know. Where is your confidence at? Akanksha, there is a video that has been there on the channel on heterotrophic mode of nutrition. You can go check that video out. Now, a lot of you here are asking me on dark and light reactions, right? See, light reaction, dark reaction. Most often than not, they may not ask you this part, which is why I have not gone in detail. We've stuck to what is there in NCERT, but we have deep dived the conceptual clarity. Light reactions that are there are basically which takes place, or they are dependent on sunlight, right? So they are dependent on sunlight. So basically, if you see your splitting of water that I told you about, right? So splitting of water is mainly something that we observe in light reaction. But dark reaction is irrespective of sunlight, which means that your carbon dioxide getting converted to carbohydrates, they are your dark reactions. So they are independent, right? Whether light is there, sunlight is there or no, it will still happen, right? So that is what we mean by light and dark for those of you who are confused. But if you do want to check out some deeper understanding, right, details of how this happens, there is a video done by Ankita ma'am for last year, right, for the previous batch, which I will tag as an info card on top. You can click on that where she's gone and deep dived into the concepts of light and dark reaction. Yes? Ma'am, process of gaseous exchange is through diffusion? Yes, it is like that. Is this from life process? Absolutely. Yes? Okay. Ma'am, desert plants once again. See, bachas, it's very simple. Okay, I'm going to do this part because I know that some of you are still confused, but I'm going to take a minute to explain. But I need to keep my promise of doing this in 60 minutes, right? That's also a promise to deliver. See, it's very simple, okay? Now, in this particular case, we see that desert plants, we know that in the desert, the temperature is very high, right? Which means that first of all, temperature is very high. Secondly, we see that there is water scarcity also, right? So we know that there is water scarcity. That means there's not enough water for plants to survive, which is why we find only certain cactus and everything. Now, the thing is, in order to save the water, I told you water loss can happen through transpiration, which is why in the mornings, the stomata will remain closed, right? But in the night, they will keep it open and they will take in carbon dioxide. And they will convert this carbon dioxide into some intermediate, okay? So that in the morning, your stomata will go back to being closed, but photosynthesis will still happen, right? That is what it is. What is sucrose? Type of carbohydrate, okay? So with this, everybody, we are going to move to the last bit of it, right? Last bit of today's session where we're going to finish off the activities which are related to photosynthesis. Now, activities related to photosynthesis are very important. There are two activities which are mentioned in your textbook, which is activity 6.1 and activity 6.2. Yes? Further doubts, you can let me know in the comments of this video. I will be giving you the answers to it as well. Now, activity 6.1 that is there will tell you whether chlorophyll is needed or no, right? See, so far I told you photosynthesis is happening. I told you, sunlight is necessary, chlorophyll is necessary. I gave you so much on all of this, right? But how do we know that plant will not do without chlorophyll? Is there any actual proof, right? Because it's very important that as science students, we need to always test and ask those questions. Is it really possible for me to do without it? If yes, okay, very good. If not, okay, let me see what happens. So you need to ask a lot of questions to understand. So this activity is a very simple activity where we take a variegated leaf. What is a variegated leaf? All of you will now have doubts. Sorry, ma'am, what is variegated leaf? It means that they are leaves which are green and they will have some patches of other color. So let's say they might have green and yellow patches, right? Simple. They will either have green and yellow patches that are there. Now what we are going to do is, first step that we're going to do is we're going to take my plant with a variegated leaf and I'm going to de-starch it. What do I mean by de-starching? It means that I will keep my plant in the dark for almost 24 to 48 hours. But why am I keeping my plant in the dark for 48 hours? Why am I doing this step? Because the thing is, the leaf that is already there will have some amount of starch in it, right? And the thing is, I don't want this to hamper my result. I want to make sure that whatever result I get is proper. So first what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of all the starch, right? So that is where I will de-starch it, where I will remove the starch, right? I'm going to get rid of all my starch. Then after that, after 48 hours of getting rid of whatever starch was there, I will keep my plant in sunlight. So a fresh photosynthesis happens, right? So now I will know I've done some experimenting and now I'm going to check. Now the thing is, after I keep it in sunlight for some time, I am going to do my starch test. What will I do for starch test? I will add a few drops of iodine solution, right? Now iodine solution is normally brownish in color, right? It's like a brownish blackish in color. But the thing is, when I add iodine, wherever green parts are there, right? So all this part that is there is green. Wherever green parts are there, all of that, right? I'm going to use maybe white color. All of these parts, wherever it is green, it will turn blue-black. And iodine will turn blue-black only when photosynthesis happens. And wherever it is yellow, we see that nothing, no color change. It is brown in color only, no color change has happened. What does that mean? That means that chlorophyll is essential, right? Chlorophyll here is essential. Now, are these activities important? Activities are very important. You can get questions in your exam for this, board exam pay, this will come. Now, the next one is very simple. That is to test for carbon dioxide. Now, to test for carbon dioxide, this is a slightly different one, but in your textbook, they would have told you about 2 bell jars, right? So, keep one plant that is there as it is. Keep another plant, but this will have potassium hydroxide. Now, potassium hydroxide has this ability to absorb, right? So, we see that this has the ability to absorb carbon dioxide. Now, the thing is, when I keep both of these plants in sunlight, yes, and I keep it in sunlight for some time, and then when I do my starch test, we see that the leaves of this particular plant will turn blue-black, okay? But this right here will not turn. So why? Why has this not turned blue-black? Easy, right? Because all the carbon dioxide was absorbed by this potassium hydroxide, because of which photosynthesis has not happened, because your raw material is only not there. Simple, right? So this is the reason behind it. Now, of course, with this everybody, we come to the end. Now, I'm going to do a last bit, right? Last chunk of it where we're quickly going to solve some questions together. And I'm going to give you a homework question so that we can wind it up in 60 minutes. Now, this is going to be some board questions, some questions which has come from boards 2023. So, are you all ready? Yes, are you all ready? Niyati, most leaves, yes. Okay? All right, very good everybody, very good. So these are going to be poll questions coming your way, so I'm going to be checking the results, right? So this right here is the first question. So you have a diagram which is given to you, right? This is right from NCERT. In the following diagram, we identify the cell, right? Identify the cell through which massive amounts of gaseous exchange takes place for photosynthesis. Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3 or is it 4? The poll question is live on your screens, everybody. I will be checking from my phone as well so that I know that all of you are giving me the answers. But this right here is a very, very easy question, right? We are talking about gaseous exchange. What do we mean by gaseous exchange? Movement, right? So we're talking about movement of gases, right? Simultaneous movement of gases inside and outside. I can see 49 votes, a few more votes to go. What is the answer to this particular one? Yes? Very good. Most of you here have given me the answer, right? Few more votes to go for those of you watching live. And hey, I may not have told you all throughout the class, but if you've stayed so far, if you've enjoyed what we did, please make sure you go ahead and subscribe to this channel, because now you know, right? End-to-end preparation is going to happen only with Byju's, and nowhere else will you find this amazing kind of thing that we do. So I know a lot of you are yet to hit the like button on this video, at least 200 likes, so jaldi. Very good, all of you. We can end the polls, and I can see that most of you here have got the correct answer. Majority of you have got the correct answer, but some of you got confused. Now, when I talk about gases, what is it? It is inside-outside movement, right? Or exchange that takes place. So here, if you see, part 1 that is labeled here is epidermis, right? So this here is the epidermis, the upper epidermis, that too. Yes, this is the upper epidermis. What is part number 2? Your part number 2 and 3 are your mesophyll cells that are there, right? So these are your mesophyll cells. Now part number 4 specifically is pointing to a region, right? It's pointing to a region in the lower epidermis. And this right here is nothing but your stomata. And we know that stomata is the site of gaseous exchange. Very good, all of you. Very good. Now quickly moving on to the next question, okay? Next question, which is also based on stomata. Opening and closing of stomata happens why? Is it because of high pressure of gases inside the cells? Is it movement of water inside and outside of the cells, right? And is it because there is light which is stimulating the guard cells, or because of diffusion of carbon dioxide inside and outside? What is the reason? AV, who is asking me constantly, ma'am, what is an intermediate? Intermediate is something in between, like an in-between product. It is not the final product, it's something in between, right? Divyakant, why bacha, why? Yes. All right, the poll is live for all of you. Very quickly, everybody, I want you all to give me the answers, right? Why is there movement of or opening of closing of stomata? Why does that take place? Mesophyll cells are just a type of cells in the leaf, nothing much. Rajeshwari, we will do that question after we do respiration, okay? I'm confused between B and D. Okay, that means we have eliminated A and C, right? We know that opening and closing of stomata takes place not because of pressure of gases or stimulus. But one thing to remember is that I told you that opening of closing of stomata takes place when it is turgid. And I mean, opening a stomata is open because cell is turgid, and this is when it is flaccid. So then what is it? Ma'am, cell can shrink, so it can't harm. It will not burst, but when it shrinks, it will not burst. Okay? Yes. All right. So most of you here have got the answer. I think we can wind up the polls, and I can see most of you have got the answer. And in this case, I can see most of you have voted for option B, which is the correct answer. I told you, right, when you have the stomata, right, when water moves in, cells become turgid, so it will open. But when water moves out, they'll become flaccid, they'll shrink, and it will remain closed. That is why movement of water in and out of the guard cell is what facilitates opening and closing. Flaccid means to shrink. Simple. Okay. Now moving on to the last question for today. Okay. Take a minute. Last question. After that we're done. Ho gaya. Last question where you have 1, 2, 3 and 4. This is a slightly tricky question. If you get it wrong also at this point, it's okay. But more practice will help you out. Right. It's a slightly tricky question. Take a minute. Right. Now here you have part 1, which is very, very big and prominent, right? Very big and prominent, which is kind of like the control center. Yes? But the thing is, next you have a smaller cell organelle, which is kind of giving a green, you know, it is like a green kind of structure. I'm helping you for those of you who are little worried. Then you have part 4, right? So then you have this particular structure in between, and then you have part 4 right here. Yes? Now this right here, part 3 is like a storage sac. Little big, right? Storage sac that is there. Then you have part 4, which is pointing to the kidney shaped cell. Have you identified what is 1, 2, 3 and 4? Give me the answer in this. So this is how your board exam questions are going to come. Nobody is going to ask you what is 1, what is 2, what is 3, what is 4, right? They will give you combinations. And this is how you work on your competency, right? See, when at Byju's, we will not just tell you that, hey, I'll give you a simple question, give the answer. But rather, we will give you those competency-based questions. And if you make mistake right now, it's absolutely okay. Make all the mistakes that you need to make so that by the end of it, when you're writing your board exams, trust me, the kind of confidence that you will get, right, will be on another level. Javed, hit the subscribe button on this video, bacha. From 5 p.m. we start our live sessions, right? Okay. Now the polls are live for all of you. You can answer in the polls as well. So very quickly, everybody, take some time. It is tricky. I am not denying it. And I will not force you all also to go ahead with it. I mean, like, answer quickly, right? Take your time. Yes, Akanksha, they are. They are. Yes, very good, all of you. Shall we wind up the polls, please? Okay, all right. Most of you here have given me the correct answer. Some of you got confused, but the correct answer here is option number B. So if you look at the diagram here, the part that was big and prominent was the nucleus. Then these small structures which are there are your chloroplasts, right? And here if you see this big structure, that is nothing but the vacuole, and last nothing but the guard cell. So with this, everyone, I took 5 minutes extra, but I stuck to my promise of giving you 60 minutes, right? But the thing is, in 60 minutes, and I want you to tell me, right? Will you ever forget photosynthesis now? Will you ever forget it? It's there, it's etched in your mind, right? You dedicated 60 minutes, you committed to us, but now you will not forget, right? You will never forget. Exactly, that is what I want. Now see, questions pe thoda idhar udhar will happen. That comes with practice, right? Concept is clear. That is what I want to achieve. And I've achieved that. We as Byju's have achieved that. Then we've done our students justice. But I'm going to give you a homework for all of you and I want you to try. I'm going to, of course, go ahead and I want you to try this, okay? Now there are 2 green plants which are kept separately in oxygen-free containers in the dark, okay? So both of them are kept separately in oxygen-free containers. One is kept in the dark, one is kept in the light. Which one will live longer? Give me the reason. This is your homework question and I want all of you here to write it in the comments of this particular video and I will be checking it out. Now see, you can't just tell me dark or light. You have to give me why also because I'm going to be checking it out, right? I mean, I'm going to be checking your answers, yes? So take a while, take a screenshot. I'm going to be discussing the answer very soon. I'll be giving you worksheets and handouts as well very soon. So make sure that you go ahead and you join our Telegram channel. Because Byju's 9 and 10 has got you covered, right? And if you love the way we teach, tell your friends about it. Hit the subscribe button because trust me, this is just the beginning. We have a lot of interesting things coming your way, making sure that you get the best kind of experiential learning. And do not forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed the way we learned, it's because of a big team, a massive team sitting here and making it happen. So show us your love as well in the comments of this video. And I will see you all soon. Up until then, everybody, take care. Lots of love to all of you. Bye-bye.